Hi, I'm Rory Tyler, and I wrote this poem. This one is called Hugh Glass, and it's the true story of the famous mountain man Hugh Glass and his battle for survival and revenge. In August 1823, 12 trappers tramped by the riverside up the Grand from the Missouri in search of the beaver's hide. Led by Major Henry, the winter they would pass in the far-off Rocky Mountains. Among them was Hugh Glass. Old Glass, he was called by the younger men, or Graybeard for his grizzled mane. He'd seen twice the years of most of them, twice the danger, twice the pain. With his pappy's rifle, he'd fled as a youth, down the Ohio and out to sea, been captured by old Jean Lafitte and forced to a life of piracy. The pirate's life did not suit Hugh. The violence, the depravity. He jumped ship off the Texas coast and was captured in Kansas by the Pawnee. He watched while his old-time partner Luke was tortured, then burned to death. When it came his time, he turned to the chief, and with his dying breath offered a sack of vermilion paint, saying, "I've no use for this anymore. Take it, and be damned to ye." He was brave right to the core. The chief was impressed by this white man's aplomb and stayed the reaper's bony hand, made Hugh his own blood brother and a member of the band. For years, Hugh lived as an Indian, a hunter and warrior of the Pawnee. Then he went with the chief on a mission of peace to St. Louis in 1823. It was there he decided to cast in his lot with the trappers heading west. Now, hunting on the banks of the Grand, he would meet his greatest test. He hears a rustling in the brush. What sort of creature there? Pronghorn? Mule deer? Perhaps an elk. My God, a grizzly bear. For a suspense-filled moment, the bear stands froze. Then he sees her hackles rise. Behind her are two bruin cubs, a bad group to surprise. The mama grizzly makes a charge, rears up and bares her fangs. Her paw swipes Hugh along the side just as his rifle bangs. But the bear keeps coming. He pulls his knife. She's chewing on his neck and head. His knife starts in a flashing iron and fangs shimmering red. She rakes him with her talons and tears a great hole in his back. His knife keeps on slashing in its own desperate attack. Drawn by the shot and the howls and the growls, Hugh's partners come like birds in flight. They shoot the blood-crazed grizzly cubs, then examine old Glass's plight. Draped across his shredded frame is the bloody grizzly sow. 600 pounds of hellfire, the spark gone from her now. They roll her carcass from the hunter's corpse. Poor Glass, ye was always good in a fight, but this bar, she were too much for ye, so, compañero, it's good night. But then, to their amazement, Hugh's eyes open wide and a sound bubbles out of his mangled throat. Good Lord, he's still alive. Major Henry tends to the dreadful wounds. We can't just walk away. We'll make our campsite here tonight and bury him at break of day. But when the morning sun comes up, Hugh is still alive. Though he can hardly draw a breath, he will not take the dive. We can't all stay here, the major says, for this is the land of the Ree, and we must move on before we're found and scalped in this wild country, nor can we leave old glass like this. And though it will put them in a bind, I'm asking for 2 volunteers, brave men, to stay behind. Now Hugh had saved Jim Bridger's life in a battle with the Ree. The youth of 19 years steps up. "He were good to me." After some hesitation, then a promise of reward, another trapper says he'll stay. It's John Fitzgerald who comes forward. In less than an hour, the camp is packed, the major's party on its way. Fitzgerald turns to Bridger. "We'll be up $40 in another day." But comes the dawn, Hugh lingers on, and another day to boot. Fitzgerald's nerves are getting frayed. He fears the Ree and craves the loot. Checking around the campsite on the morning of day 3, Fitzgerald finds what he fears most, fresh sign of the Ree. He turns to Jim. "It's time we're going," for Hugh can hardly draw a breath, nor eat, nor drink. He wouldn't want to be the agent of our death. But Bridger, he just shakes his head, denies Fitzgerald's plea. "We said we'd stay until he died, and he were good to me." On day 4, they dig a grave, though Hugh still hangs there by a thread. Fitzgerald turns to Bridger. "If we stay here, we'll all be dead." But Jim stands fast. "I ain't a-going. Old Glass's spark is still aglow. We said we'd stay until he died. It'd be a sin to leave him so." Now on day 5, Fitz pushes his case with a violent, suppressed threat. "Major Henry put me in charge. Get your things, let's get. The Ree will slowly torture us. I say it's time we're going. There ain't nothing but a prayer for Glass. We're heading for the Yellowstone." Bridger finally succumbs. "Fitz, I know that this ain't right, no how. And though I feel like a low-down skunk, I'll leave with ye right now." Fitzgerald packs up all his things, then starts in packing Hugh's. "Ye don't leave a dead man's gun nor knife, nor nothing the living can use." Then they leave him in his death-like trance. No telling how long he lay there, with the burning fever, and the dreadful pain, and the nightmares of a bear. But at last, in time, Hugh awakes, sick and pale as a ghost, abandoned in the wilderness 500 miles from the nearest post. He drags himself to the nearby stream and slakes his burning thirst. He's been in some nasty scrapes before, but this surely is the worst. For days he lay just half alive, living on berries and roots and plums and a raw rattlesnake that he'd killed with a rock, for those skunks had taken the guns. And as he lay there, gathering strength, but no more than a sickly child, he thinks of the bear and Bridger and Fitz, how they'd left him to die in the wild. A black rage swells up in his breast, and he pounds his fist on the ground. "An eye for an eye. Vengeance is mine. I'll track them varmints down as God is my witness. A tooth for a tooth. They'll pay for their cowardly ways. I'll lower them into their loathsome graves if it takes 1,000 days." He tries to stand and start on his quest, but one leg won't hold it all. "I guess there's nothing for it," he thinks. "If I can't walk, I'll crawl." And so he does, out across the plain. After a week he's lost all track of time, but that bitter thought drives him on and on. Revenge, revenge is mine. Living on berries and roots and bugs, crawling from water hole to water hole, the days grow short and the nights grow cool. Fort Kiowa his goal. New skin begins on his neck and face, but the hole in his back, that's still raw meat. He hears the flies buzz in and out as they come for something to eat. One day he chanced on a pack of wolves devouring a buffalo. I've got to have some meat, he thinks. Them wolves will have to go. He waits until they've eaten their fill, then tries to drive them from the remains, but a sickly man on hands and knees is a sight any wolf disdains. So gathering all the strength he's got, he totters to his feet, and the greatest joy he's ever felt is to see those wolves retreat. He eats red meat till he can eat no more, then tears off all he can carry, feels the strength come back to his bones, and goes to sleep almost merry. In the morning, he fashions a cottonwood crutch, knowing now that he can stand, and hobbles along on one leg and a stick across that broken land. Over Fox Ridge, past Rattlesnake Butte, and down to the Cheyenne River Slough, it's there that Hugh is come upon by a band of friendly Sioux. By means of common word and sign, his adventure and quest are told. The Indians are glad to help a man so brave and bold. They shelter him and clothe him, tend to his festering wound, and take him by boat to Fort Kiowa, 'neath a full October moon. Now the head man at Fort Kiowa, one Joseph Brasseau by name, tries to get old Glass to stay, for he's still quite weak and lame. Snorts Hugh, my stick's got to float. There's something must be done. Just give me some moccasins, tobacco, a coat, powder, ball, and a gun. In 2 days' time, he's on his way up the Missouri with some traders, heading for the Yellowstone to take his vengeance on those traders. For that one idea had got him strong. How could the men he once called friend abandon him in the wilderness to meet his sorry end? He'd have it out, and all would know, whatever come to pass, ye were signing your own death warrant if ye double-crossed Hugh Glass. Through Indian raids and blizzards, and through the devilish cold, Hugh tramps 1,000 miles so the story can be told. He follows the river, he walks on the trail, he sees each subtle sign, and comes to the fort one wintry eve, and they're singing Old Lang Syne. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind, I'll give them words new meaning, he snarls. Revenge, revenge is mine. Open up in there, he ballards, pounding loudly at the gate. It's me, Old Glass, back from the dead, prepare to meet your fate. The men are most astonished. Interrupted in mid-toast, they look at him with fear and awe. They think he is a ghost. I ain't no ghost, Glass declares, though left for dead down on the Grand by Jim and Fitz, them cowards. Before ye now I stand to take what's mine. Revenge is sweet. Tell them to say their last farewell, then bring 'em here before me, 'cause I'm sending them to hell. Major Henry now steps forward. He is seldom at a loss. He speaks to Hugh quite firmly. "Simmer down, old hoss. Fitzgerald left 6 weeks ago, forsook the trapper's trade. Bridger's out a huntin' south of the stockade. There'll be no shootin' for the moment, nor anything so gory, until ye've had a drink with me and, by God, told me your story." But at that moment, Jim returns with a freshly killed mule deer. His face registers astonishment, then joy, then awe, then fear. Hugh Glass, you're still alive, comes the cry he cannot stifle. "No thanks to ye," Hugh snarls, begins to raise his rifle. But Major Henry steps between. "There'll be no shooting, I declare." "There'll be no shooting, I declare, until I've heard both your stories," and fixes them with Hugh with an icy stare. They retire to the Major's digs. Jim's all guilt and misery. "I done ye wrong, Hugh," he admits, "and ye were good to me. Though the Ree was all around us, and ye appeared to be a loss, I should not have left my compañero. If ye must, then shoot, old hoss." "Sounds good to me," Hugh whispers, begins to raise his gun, but the Major shoves the barrel down. "Bridger's tale ain't done." "Oh, what I done were wrong," says Jim. "I knowed it then. I always shall, and I'm neither blaming it on Fitz. It's a skunk deserts his pal." Though we could not tell from time to time if Hugh was still alive, I should have stuck to the bitter end, though none of us survived. Hugh glares at the youth before him, repentant and resigned. I guess that I'll forgive ye, lad. Perhaps for old lang syne. You're made of better stuff than most, grit and wit and plenty sand. But remember what ye done to me. Never do that to another man. Major Henry breathes a sigh of relief. "Ye done right, Hugh. That's what I think. Bridger, ye can leave us now. Hugh, how about that drink?" Through all that winter, Hugh hunts and traps with his customary mettle, but come the spring he's headed east, he still has a score to settle. For Bridger had refreshed his mind and filled in the missing bits he'd lost in his delirium. He means to bury Fitz. He tracks him to Fort Atkinson, but once more holds his hand, just retrieves his pappy's rifle, and returns to the wild land. We know nothing of Fitzgerald's end, but Jim is a famous mountain man who always could be counted on to lend a helping hand. And Hugh, well, he met his fate up on the Yellowstone, shot by the Shoshone and scalped right to the bone. But of all the Western pioneers of courage and of fame, if there's one more brave and true than Glass, I have not heard his name.